Hey everybody, welcome to 3D6 Charge, a podcast about competitive Warhammer 40k, the state of the game, and community news. We are streaming live on Twitch every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/3D6Charge. I'm your host, Chris Vo, and joining me tonight is Kevin Lieb.
Howdy, howdy.
All right, so Kevin, what's going on? What's new with you?
I have acquired a fairly large Necron collection out of nowhere. I've kind of purchased Ben's. I traded for Ben's collection. I purchased another friend of mine's collection, and some subparts of another friend's collection. So, I've also done an order for some Tomb Blades, so I can bring 2 squads of 9 and some Triarch Stalkers, and then there's actually not a lot of Necron lists I can't build right now.
Nice.
Lichguard is the only thing I can think about maybe wanting that I don't have. It's pretty nice. But I've been collecting Marines for so long, and my Marine collection is still significantly bigger than my Necron collection.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of cool having almost every option available.
Yeah, it feels good when you can do that. It's very rewarding as just a collector when something comes around and or you get an idea for a list and you're just like, oh, I can just do that.
Yep.
And especially when they're all is why I tend to tell people not to chase the meta and just build what you like, as I consider getting a bunch of
You're a monster.
I know.
On that note, though, I've actually played a few games with Necrons, and also I finally have tried out the Deathwatch Army of Renown. Now, with Necrons, I played a fun 3,000 point game with some buddies. And while not the most competitive in nature game, it did let me kind of get to experience a whole host of different Necron things. I'm very impressed. I know we've had Ben talk about how he really likes the vehicles. I'm a big fan of Mephrit vehicles. I do think a lot of the vehicles aren't great outside of Mephrit. And it's interesting how that one army makes half the units in the Codex feel great.
Yeah.
It's a little bit sad that I think a lot of them aren't playable outside of it, but that's a different issue. That being said, I think command protocols for the most part are kind of terrible because of how restrictive they are.
Yeah, don't you have to pick all of them before the game even starts?
And then they're only a 6-inch aura off of your characters. And it means any of your forward deploying guys who want the hard hitting melee buffs and other things just often aren't going to be in range in time. There's ones that literally have to do with healing that happens in your command phase. So if you're just not in the right spot, you just don't get that extra healing. It's awkward. So I'm definitely a much bigger fan of doing multiple detachments with multiple different faction types than I was when I initially thought I was going to get into Necrons. Don't get me wrong. I think if you can master placement on the protocols, they are still powerful, but they're so niche, and I think you might be. I can see a lot of play lines where you actually are straining yourself. I don't know. In order to utilize them.
Okay.
That being so, go ahead.
No, I was saying okay. So what are your thoughts on the Army of Renown then? Did you have experience with that going into how does that compare to your Necron experience?
So, actually, before we move on to the Army of Renown, I'm going to kind of finish up the conversation on the Necron experience. So, I played a fairly tanky Necron list. It was 3 Annihilation Barges, 2 Doomsday Arcs, 1 one Catacomb Command Barge, 2 Void Scythes, Night Scythes, the Transport Flyer with 20 Necron Warriors inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
because this was like immediately after that 3,000 point game. Yes, I am a maniac. I did include some locust heavy destroyers who I don't actually think are that good. So those weren't that durable. And I went first against freebooters, killed uh, 2 vehicles, and then he proceeded to turn around and kill 920 points of my army. And I want you to note that the majority of my army is quantum phasing shielding with a 5, which means they are at best wounding on 4s and have a 5 up invuln, and he still picked up 920 points of it.
Yikes.
Freebooters are, yeah.
That's just
And you would,
mean.
yeah. And you would think that, and you can spend a CP to give any one of them a 4 up invuln, so you think you'd be able to use that to, like, defend yourself against them getting their first proc. It just wasn't enough, unfortunately. So it's weird. I then followed up that game playing against the same person, but he brought a like more traditional orc. He tried the Blood Axes supplement,
Yep.
and turns out that Blood Axes I don't know, melee orcs just like I don't think are pointed super well. Um, it feels like a lot of the points like efficiencies went into the buggies, and I feel really bad for orc players because like you don't want to be the person just playing buggies killing everybody, but you also don't want to be
Losing all the time.
yeah. The answer might be buggies, but not free loot, free Buddhas. But
But if you're not gonna do freebooters with buggies, what else would you do? Like Death Skulls, Evil Sons?
yeah, just something. I mean, if you're gonna play a more, because keep in mind the game that I agreed to play against him wasn't like we're playing the end all tournament unless you just happen to bring uh free Buddha buggies. So uh so like it, you can take your sweet bottles, just don't play the faction that's like breaking the meta. I still think the army would be very competitive. It just won't be like the best version.
It would
I don't
actually maybe be fun for the other person to play against.
know. So that kind of summarizes my Necron experience so far. I'm having a lot of fun with the army. I think a similar list to what I was just talking about with a little bit less destroyers, and a little bit more vehicles is probably where I'm supposed to be going with the army if I want to bring it to like a tournament.
Mhm.
I still don't know if that's like necessarily the best choice. I'd need to play with it a few more times. I definitely am on replacing the Night Scythes with Ghost Arcs with 10-man warrior blobs in it, just to make room for more of the uh, some more of the impressive shooters and to allow those Night Scythes to be upgraded to Doom Scythes. Those things can just like pick up a buggy apiece.
Yeah, but can they take a hit?
They can stay far enough back. A the missile plane will be able to take out one of them, and then it will be able to take out it in return. So
That's not too bad
that's good.
then.
Yeah. And if I go first, I just get to take out the 2 planes.
Okay.
Fighting fire with fire. Um. So moving on to that Deathwatch army round. As a reminder, what benefits do you get for playing that army? At the beginning of each of your turns, for each of your units, you get to pick a. It's actually not the beginning of your turn. I was rereading it. It's actually the beginning of the battle round. You get to pick a 90% sure. A chapter tactic for that unit to be in,
Yep.
and that replaces the Deathwatch chapter tactic. They have a warlord trait for which is a signature or of getting your Deathwatch chapter tactic back. I can see that one being taken. mainly because it combos with all the kill teams have to take an upgrade that if you like match up your chapter tactic with it, you get to reroll wound rolls. So like getting that back is like pretty relevant some amount of the time.
Yeah, and normally you can only pick like one specialism per kill team, but because of that restriction, they let you take double up on them, right?
Normally you can only take one specialism per army, and this lets you take two of the same specialism. Um,
Right, because otherwise it'd be like damn near impossible to make actual.
so it's hard to fit more than like there's 6 specialisms, and it's hard to fit more than 5 kill teams in an army. So like I still think it would have been possible. That being said, it does let you double down on their best specialism, which is the Aquila. Um, as a reminder, that one lets you spend 3 CP, and when the unit shoots, if it hits, it just goes straight to wounding. And each unit can only be affected by this stratagem once per game. On that, I was kind of doing a little bit of looking into how I wanted to build the army. Cyclone missile launchers on Terminators are fairly good when you just have to hit with them. Like you get Deathwatch can just put themselves in the Devastator Doctrine, so they're going to be AP3. That either is putting most vehicles on their invuln or just ignoring their armor in the current meta.
Yep.
And Deathwatch have a relic of +1 to hit things with fly in a 6-inch aura. And the list I'm working on has a chaplain to give another +1 to hit. So even though the Terminators are going to be moving -1 to hit, they're still going to can be hitting into 3s into planes. And it is not aircraft that you get +1 to hit, it's things with fly. So like if you go up against another target that just like happens to have fly, you can be just like hitting on 2s even though you moved. Also the regular veterans in the same squad can be taking missile launchers, 4 of them. You are limited to 3 cyclone missile launchers in the squad, so you are getting what is that, 6, 10 missile shots that just have to hit, and you can chapter master them hitting on 3s. Like you do 5 and 5, and that's just 2 planes dead most of the time, or 6 and 4 because you kill uh the missile jet with 6 shots, acknowledging that I think that one gets the invuln, right?
The was bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 6 shots, hopefully getting 5 hits, and then you're hoping to get 3 through to just kill the thing, rerolling damage if needed. And then the other 4 shots can go into the other thing and it won't get an invuln. You might even be able to go like 7-3 with that math. The important thing with that squad, I still am going to take a sergeant with a storm shield and spending a CP to give it artificer armor. So if I go second, I can pretty much ignore or be fairly resilient to the Dakadet shooting in. Like actually getting to make 3-ups is pretty good. And then also a Terminator with a storm shield. So 5 wounds on 3-ups. Having seen how the math plays out on that thing, that like means that I'll probably be losing those 2 guys and then 1 cyclone missile launcher Terminator, and then I have a chief apothecary to bring the guy back. So that's pretty good. One of the nice things about this army into freebooters is you don't have to split up your squads, which actually means that your guys are going to be more elite than your freebooter squad. So you could actually think about grind them down. Also, because you're large squads, you're not going to be letting them proc freebooters super easily. So, like, dense actually becomes relevant again.
I mean, I wouldn't say that was ever like not relevant.
I the way I've often seen that army plays, the missile jet kills something, then the Daka jet kills something, and then they're ignoring dense.
That's Yeah.
Um, I'm still on Kill Team Cassius in this army. I'm still on the 5 aggressors with Bolt Storm and 5 heavy intercessor kill team squad that can kind of just like also kill anything. As I was saying earlier, one of the main benefits, the reason why you're supposed to be playing this army is not for that 3 CP just auto hit, but one of the nice things about the army is that because you can just switch and swap your chapter tactics at will, I found that the amount of CP I needed to spend to have my units do things was pretty low, like really low. So I had initially thought, based on my original games playing Death Watch, was that I could only probably use that 3 CP stratagem once, twice, and I'd probably feel like I'm running out of tricks. And I
Yeah.
don't think that's true. Having now played it in the game. By the way, Imperial Fist chapter tactic is A+ with specialist ammunition, like unbelievably A+.
Yeah, no, I mean, like the Imperial Fist tactic was like, it was never bad. It was just, it got neutered a lot when you had to move on from Devastator Doctrine. But when you're using it as Death Watch, like you can turn on Devastator whenever you want. You can turn on the Fist tactic when you want. You know, so like it ends up just being like another tool in your toolbox, and given the right circumstance, it's a really good tool.
Yeah. Turns out that like so like with specialist ammunition, you can be your guns are 2 damage, ignoring cover, and then all of a sudden, uh, you're just like looking at a squad of intercessors in cover and just being like, you're making 4-ups. Every failed 4-up is a dead guy, and these are like my 20-point Marines shooting into your 20-point Marines. Also, I charge into melee like this would be a Death Watch veteran with a Death Watch bolt gun and a chainsword. I also charge into melee like I'm an assault intercessor. I'm making 4 chainsword attacks. It's like the unit becomes incredibly all rounder, just like, and you can just kind of like, if you know what you're doing, you can specialize in everything. That being said, this army is like the most complex Marines I think I've ever played.
I mean, that's always
uh,
been the case with Death Watch, hasn't it?
yeah, but this like dialed it up to an extreme. So like every single one of your squads, you have to keep track of what things you've done with them. Because you're trying to max Aquila specialisms, which don't just say 3 CP, you let hit on anything. The normal effect is pick a target, pick a a battlefield roll, and reroll wound rolls of 1 against it, and this can um and this is in addition to your normal chapter tactic version of it.
Yep.
You also have like, but remember what your 3 specializations are for each one of them. Um, you also have to remember what the squad's initial specialization was when it's not Aquila, like, and what your chapter tactic is, because keep in mind, like against different opponents, you might take different different versions of your chapter tactic, where it's because the Death Watch one is like pick a battlefield roll and reroll wound rolls 1 against it.
Yep.
Like sometimes you might be on troops, sometimes you might be on elites. Oh, do you remember what the guys on the boards are? Are they fast attacks? Are they elites? Uh,
Who knows?
who knows, right? Is a repulsor a transport or is it a heavy support? Because those are different. It used to be one, it's now the other. Um, yeah. Which I, it's interesting because I haven't actually played a lot of Death Watch recently. The Marines I have been playing and have actually been on the more traditional simple side. So like going back to Death Watch, it's like it does feel like you're playing a non-Marine army in regards to complexity. Um, but yeah. Um, but that's what I've been up to, Chris. I know That's our longer than our usual. What have you been up to? How about what have you been up to?
um, not too much. Just been working forever. But yeah, I was able to get a game in this past weekend against our friend Omar. Um, and he was trying out his Thousand Suns, just trying to just work it out, and it was honestly a bad matchup for him because I hadn't unpacked my army from ArmorCon, so I just grabbed my bag and just went to the store over in Abington to play, and it I made that list as like a hard counter to Grey Knights and Thousand Suns. Um, so yeah, I basically won just on secondaries because I could just take Abhor the Witch and Assassination.
Um, this army, I was actually working on a Space Wolves army. It's kind of on the back burner now. I did actually pick up 20 Marines with Storm Shields and Lightning Claws because, um, did I say Assault Marines? Terminators with Storm Shield and Lightning Claw.
Yeah,
Uh, because Space Wolves can do that. Um, but do you remember the Hounds of Mordkai?
I do. The anti-psyker. What are they? Fast attacks? Eights?
Elites.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what they do, but I do know like they're anti-psyker Space Wolves.
um, I believe they have an. Let's see how much I remember. I believe it's an 18-inch aura of -1 to cast. If you're within 6 inches, it's -2 to cast. If you cast a spell on them on a 4-up, it doesn't work, and they can deny the witch once per turn.
Let's see.
Uh,
It looks like they ignore Lookout Sir if it's Psyker. And against Psykers, they get +1 to hit and +1 damage.
right. So they're getting now all of a sudden they're -2 AP pistols. Um,
2 damage.
which also means they're getting past all his dust,
Yep.
which relevant for Space Wolves.
Yep. Let's see. They can only be targeted as a target of a psychic ability if they're closest, and if they lose mortals because of in the psychic phase, they ignore it on a 4-up, which is nuts. And then, yeah, minus basically Shadow in the Warp.
With if you're closer, it's -2.
Yes, 18 inches, and then within 6, it's -2. That's pretty good.
Um,
But I mean, it's 22 points apiece. It's kind of pricey, I think.
I agree. I guess the question I have, if I were to play Space Wolves right now, would you throw in a squad of them in this current meta? Don't
Am
get me
I
wrong.
am
I
I taking a
understand they
Rune Priest?
what?
Would I be taking a Rune Priest?
Oh, is there -1, not just enemy?
Um, no, it's enemy. It's only enemy, but like I'm of the opinion that if you're gonna go like all out anti psyker, you may as well like try to get the Hounds of Mordkai to like they cost a lot of points, but they can score you like good secondary points if you're using them to stack up like Abhor the Witch or Assassinate.
Gotcha. Um,
Because otherwise, the elite slot for Space Marines is just so crowded. I feel like you can make like a better choice if you're not just like skewing into the anti-psyker.
I'm just wondering. You take them. You take the Reliquary of Gothamore or something. I forget what exactly it is. The anti-psyker relic that's already in the core rulebook.
Yep.
You can kind of just like turn off a psychic phase for your opponent. Um, I do want to take a Rune Priest. Because that Terminator army kind of exists on the idea that you walk up, you give all your Terminators cover, even though they're standing out in the open, and you spend 2 CP to give them all -1 to hit, and you just like actually can march across the board as though you're in cover with 0 up armor saves, but not also being 500 points.
Yeah, I can see that. Especially when like it's a pretty easy spell to cast. It's only a warp charge 6,
Mm-hmm.
and with
Bring a bring y'all, I think his name is.
yeah,
Their
he
chief
gets like
librarian.
what +1. Stormcaller.
I believe so, or he might automatically reroll. I know
He
he's
gets +1 to psychic, and then he can reroll denies.
gotcha. I knew rerolls were somewhere in his psychic repertoire.
Yeah.
Uh, is he also a triple denier or a double denier?
He gets 2 cast, 2 denies.
Okay, yeah.
But then he knows smite, and then like 3 spells. A lot. I think there's only like 3 good spells in the Space Wolves discipline anyway. So
Yep. It was a brief tangent on the if you wanted to beat Psychers, is it worth? Do you think it's right in the meta to try to beat Psychers? That army also, it's unfortunate because you do need a turn, but if you do go first against orcs, you kind of can just make your army unkillable. You take a bunch of Redemptor Dreadnoughts. They also get the +1 to save, I believe. They might not get the cover bonus, but I know they get the -1 to hit. From the 2 CP stratagem. So you're just like, but they're also Redemptors, so they're hard to kill. Like you could make a fairly resilient fortress that also gets to take the center of the board against orcs.
yeah.
It so vehicles can't get light cover from terrain, but if an ability gives them light cover, then it works. Just a lot of abilities say this doesn't work on vehicles; it only works on infantry. The dreadnoughts are
Yeah,
in orc
yeah. So
core.
so like yeah, the whole like infantry only, it applies to area terrain, not the actual trait of light cover. Yeah, your Redemptors do get a nice 2 up save.
Ooh, excellent. Yeah,
Because when
that
you look
is
up when you
resilient.
look up light cover, there's nothing saying that only infantry can do it. It's just, only infantry, beast, and swarm within the footprint of area terrain get the benefits of cover, whatever like that those traits are.
Yep. Um, it's one direction I was thinking about going into this orc meta. Um, I'm a big Space Marine fan, so I was just trying to think about ways to keep the army relevant. I do think we've lagged behind, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Speaking of lagging behind, Chris, and that being ridiculous, have you do you want to move on to the main topic of our show?
Yeah. So G-Dubs put out this gamers survey here, and it's explicitly they've done something similar in the past, but I don't think it was explicitly for DK. So like I haven't done the survey, Kevin hasn't done the survey. I got it up on the screen now. So uh let's just go do the survey. When was the last time you played Warhammer 40K?
Earlier this week.
All right. How long have you been a
Um,
40K player? I think this
because this
one.
is a
I think this
because
one's
this is a
interesting because it says player, not how long have you been into Warhammer.
Yeah, that's important, though I wonder how often people are going to like essentially fib on that. Uh uh so for me it's 1 to 4 years. I believe it's longer for you, right?
I only started like playing on a regular basis in like 2018, 2017, something like that. So like I'm still in that 1 to 4 year mark. That being said, I have played, although like I can count the number of games that I had from 3rd to 7th edition on like my 2 hands here. I don't know if that counts.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm gonna go ahead and say 1 to 4 years as well.
I find before we move on from this topic, I find it interesting because they essentially did less than a year, 1 to 4 years, and then 5 year increments from that. And it's funny because that 1 to 4 years essentially means, did you start in 8th edition?
Yeah, that's basic. That's basically it.
But the way the rest of the questions are set up, they're not set up by like edition length for the rest of them. So I actually wonder whether or not that just was like they got lucky, or if they actually like intended that and they just didn't care about the rest of the editions.
I think they did do that on purpose. Let's see. So, because I mean, like they know that their wholesale redesign of the system with Eighth was a big
Resounding
part.
success.
Yeah, a big part of their recent continued success. This question: do you attend 40K gaming events or tournaments? Yes. No, and I don't want to. No, but I'd like to. So obviously, I'm gonna like yes, but like I'm intrigued by this option of no, but I'd like to. I wonder if they're going to like take a look at, give a certain amount of weight to answers that from people that like chose that no, but I'd like to, and try to figure out like, all right, what's stopping them from going to events, especially since like GW is doing like the opens now too.
Yeah. I also it's interesting they have the no, but I don't want to also, because I guess that's fine.
I mean, some people
Um,
don't. Some people don't want to go to events. They just like playing Beer Hammer.
yeah. Yeah.
Which of the following ways do you play in the current edition of 40K? Your options are narrative, so Crusade, casual matched, competitive matched, and open. I don't know anybody that plays open.
I've never played open. I have played Crusade through this edition. I the open's this weird thing where I'm like, what is open really? I thought about doing a like RPG session using RPG system using 40K. I guess that's what open is, but that's also so extreme that I almost wouldn't even call it 40K anymore. I I'd still almost consider it narrative. I don't know. In my mind, you're either like playing match play or you're playing narrative. I just don't get
I mean,
open.
to me, the distinction is like either you're doing match play and you're playing like GT missions, or you're doing Crusade and there's like a campaign, or you're playing open, in which is just like I have these models, put them on the board, and then we're just gonna roll dice at each other. There's yeah, I get why they put in open play, just so that people could just be like, oh, I have a way to just play with the models that I have without having to build a full 2,000 point or 500 point army. But at the same token, it's just like you could do that without it being. You don't need to like officially like say it's open. I have this squad of guys. I want to roll some dice.
Yeah. All right.
Do you most commonly use points or power level? GW, stop trying to make power level happen. It's not going to happen. Nobody uses it. The only time power level is even a question is when it's strategic reserve or summoning.
I
Actually, I think the interesting option here is neither.
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually think there's a world where they could like make a power level system that works. And like they try to do that a little bit with the point system where they tried to make every upgrade like 5 points, which like if you were to say one old power level is for a new power level, you could kind of do it. You're like a midway in between. Um AOS is essentially just power level. Once again, a little bit more granular than actual power level, so it's like that kind of proves that it could be successful. I don't know. I'm not fully with you on power level is a no go. I do think their current implementation is a no go, but inherently, I don't think it's just a no go.
There's ways to make it work, but I just right now it's not working.
I agree.
This one's interesting. What do you enjoy about 40K? Select your top three. Your options are lore, planning your army, seeing your army in action, tactical challenge, winning, creating cinematic moments, learning new rules, hanging out with friends, meeting new people, and doing something fun with my future. So you got 10 options here. They asked you to pick the top three. This one's
So for
difficult for
Chris,
me.
I know for you it's only winning, right? That's why when
Yes, how can I
uh
click this 3 times?
that's why when Ben and I try to challenge you, you all of a sudden aren't available, right?
Exactly.
I'd like to play a game of 40K, he posted in a public channel. Yeah, sure, Chris, I'll play a game. I'm no longer available. Oh, I see how it is.
I was no longer available. I was packing until midnight that night.
Well, then you messed up on the initial post, good sir.
I did. No, this one is difficult for me because like I don't know. It's weird. It's like a lot of because a lot of my friends are from the Warhammer community. So like one of the things I look forward to is just playing games with people because it's just me hanging out with like friends and we're just rolling dice and shooting the shit.
Yeah.
Um,
So I know what my top three are. I like seeing my army in action. I like hanging out with friends, and I like the tactical challenge. Um, Winning's also there. But like if I'm not like digging what my army's doing and like feeling like I'm doing sweet things with it, I could be winning, but it's not fun.
so I like winning. I mean, like everybody likes to win. Nobody likes to be a loser. But that being said, that's not why I play the game. Winning is just like the nice like cherry on top. It's like that validation you get from overcoming that tactical challenge. Like doing something. Planning your army and learning those new rules and um, it's the culmination of all of those things. It's not the end all be all. Like I like winning, but I'm not a win at all cost player.
It's
Yeah.
interesting. I can tell winning's not like my top priority because I think you know about the Norton combat patrols. I stopped going to those because I stopped having like reasonable games. I could bring like a tier 1 army and just like win it, but that wasn't like interesting. I wanted to go there to like actually challenge myself or do something interesting with my models. Uh, so yeah, it, it's funny. It's just like these type. It's like when you actually do a survey, you actually like think about like, why do I play this game? What events can I actually use to prove that I'm not just here to win the game?
Yeah, I think for me, I enjoy like hanging out with friends, the tactical challenge, and then um, probably the lore setting for me. I mean, like I've been into since Christ over 20, and 20 years ago I was 12 years old and I couldn't afford things like a Land Raider, so I just bought the books and stuff and just read those. And then I'd buy like a single blister pack of a mini and then just paint it up. Even like I would have like an Emperor's Children Lord and a Orc War Boss. I don't have those armies, and I didn't back then. But I still had them because I thought they were cool uh, characters. So I think as for me, it's the lore, the challenge, and then just hanging out with friends.
Um, this is technically under hang out with friends, but if they had an option for complaining about Warhammer, that'd be my number one.
just, just grousing and bitching about Warhammer, cursing
Absolutely.
James Workshop.
Why, James? Why?
Okay, so please select the option which describes your response to the statement. I play to win. This is one of those like strongly agree to strongly disagree type spectrum. Um, I would go with disagree on this one because, like I said, I don't play to exclusively win at all costs. I play to, challenge myself on a mental level, and and just knowing my army, and building my army, and trying to have trying to like maximize my efficiency with that. And it just so happens that those things lead to winning. But every time I lose, like when I'm playing like not tournament games, I prefer to lose because then I'm learning more things I can take into tournaments. Then I can win. So I don't play to win. I disagree with that statement. How about you?
So it's interesting. I would say I agree with it. When you sub out the games where I'm trying to teach somebody, which I just don't. I think you're like intentionally supposed to lose those games. Um, when you sub out those games, I very rarely, once I'm at the table, am like not trying to win. Even if I went there to try to show off my sweet army and try to do sweet things, I still want to win that game doing those sweet things. As you said before, everyone likes winning. But I'm not in the strongly agree, which I think is essentially saying the win at all costs category. I don't find myself there.
That's a fair answer.
Thank you. I'm glad I can provide fair answers.
This one's just asking like where have you shot for Warhammer products? The GW website, Warhammer store, other shops, events.
All the above.
Actually, no, I do buy things from the store once in a while. I went to the Warhammer store like a few weeks ago just because I was looking for one of the Forge World paints, and those are kind of hard to find. Just a regular like game store.
The Chapel View one, Cranston one.
No, I went to the one in Franklin. That one's like,
Oh, I had no idea that one existed.
all right. So this is again like one of those things on the spectrum of like strongly agree to strongly disagree with the added kicker of I don't know. And the statements are, it's easy to get started with 40k. I like the level of complexity in 40k. The rules are easy to learn, and I wouldn't want to change anything about the current game. So this one is a big old can of worms, I think. Is it easy to get started with Warhammer 40?
I disagree.
I disagree as well. Just because like there's a big barrier to entry with 40k. You gotta pick an army. You gotta buy the models. You gotta assemble the models. You gotta paint the models.
You do not have to. See, I disagree on the paint the models, but I feel like everything up until there has been already a large barrier.
Yeah.
You gotta learn how to use your models. You gotta buy the books to play your models. You gotta find someone to play against. Which can be hard for some people. And that's to start playing.
Yeah. So I'll bring up an example of Aeronautica Imperialis, and compare it to like X-Wing. So, one of my biggest pet peeves with Aeronautica is the models aren't like pre-painted; they're just bare plastic. And the thing is, with like, I compare that to a game like X-Wing, where the models are already painted. Is it the best paint job in the world? It's not, but like it's painted. You can go buy the blister, rip it open, put it on the stand, put it on the table. You can play with it. But then like GW comes out with Aeronautica, which I think like is a great concept for a game, but then like they're putting up so many barriers to entry on it, that it makes it difficult for a critical mass of players to pick up the game. You can't just pick up the box set, and then like just let people that are maybe new to the hobby, the Warhammer hobby in general, to just get going with it, as opposed to, again, X-wing. And even for veteran players like you or myself, like, I would love to play Aeronautica. I don't want to put in the time and effort to paint a bunch of tiny planes and then have nobody to play. And it's one of those things where it's like a chicken or egg situation where you can't get the people to buy the models and play the game because there aren't people buying models and playing the game.
Yeah. Yeah, the barrier to entry. I remember starting with X-Wing, and you buy a core set, and then you see, oh, there's I think they used to be $12. Oh, there's a $12 blister. Now I can play with Darth Vader in. Oh, now I can add Wedge Antilles to my army in, and just like um for that game, every individual purchase is small too. I'm pretty sure Aeronautica like blisters are still in the $45 to $50 range.
Yeah.
Let me take a look at that.
I'm pretty sure that's the case. That being said, I do very much appreciate that they made basically a one-to-one version on the PC of Aeronautica Imperialis and also Warhammer Underworlds. So I do appreciate that a lot. That being said, I still need to play Aeronautica.
It looks like they're in the $40 range, which is still,
it's affordable, but it's not nothing. That's not impulse buy territory.
Yeah, especially for at that time, I was in high school / starting college. Like,
dude, $40 is a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because it'd be like, I could you want that instant gratification, and I could save up like $20 to go buy one blister of X-Wing, saving up $40. Turns out that 2 weeks, I'm an impulse buyer. I'm a college kid. Might not be buying it.
Yeah, $40 when you're like college kid. That's like, it's like 4 hours of work right there. Like, you want to trade that for a box of minis that you still have to put work into, and then you got to pay more money for the paints to make them look all pretty. It's a hard sell. And and even then, the barrier of entry to Aeronautica is way lower than just 40K as a whole, and we're still bitching about Aeronautica.
Well, you're comparing it to X-Wing, which I consider X-Wing one of the easiest miniature games to get into. You can watch someone play X-Wing and feel like you understand like 70% of what's going on. It's a fairly simple game to pick up. Even then, though, Aeronautica Imperialis, I've watched a game and I've played X-Wing. It's just like, oh, in this book you have these special maneuvers that are special to these guys. It's like, oh, well, that's not easy to remember. And like, oh, because he's height here and your height there, you get this bonus to your saves. Where like X-Wing, it's like, oh, you're shooting through a rock, you get +1 to your save. It's like, one of these is a lot easier to like just pick up.
Yeah, so that's a good segue into the next statement here. I like the level of complexity in Warhammer 40. I'm inclined to say agree on that. I wouldn't say strong agree, because there are some armies, and at you add mech, where the level of complexity is just, I feel like it's complexity for the sake of complexity, where it's just like bonkers. But it's one of those game design things where you don't want a game to be so simple that it's easily just becomes like a solved game, but you don't want to be so complex that you need like a PhD in game theory to be able to like figure it out. There's a happy medium in there, and it leads to a lot of strategic depth and a healthy meta. That being said, is the level of complexity in 40k where it should be to meet that? Um, I think it's close. You know,
Bro, it's interesting. I think this is it's awkward because often when you talk to someone about I want to get into 40k for the first time, um, you tell them pick an army you like because you're going to be painting them a lot and you want to make sure you like what you're looking at, right?
yep,
But like they only have 2 starter armies per season, or sorry, per
edition.
edition. Uh like basic Space Marines are on the simpler side to play, same with Necrons. Doesn't mean that you can't do sweet things, and it doesn't mean there's not strategy in the game, but they are on the simpler side. Um, you can make your models more complex, like you can play Death Watch with that, as I was explaining before, where you get to switch around everything, you have to memorize everything. Or you can play Ultramarines, and you rapid fire in 2 turns. You rapid fire at full range. Woo! Um, some, but you it's awkward because like if you're trying to explain complexity, like you think you look at the person just like I know you love the look of AdMech, but I think you should play Space Marine because I think you will have a better play experience. Ugh, ugh. I don't know if you can necessarily do that. In which case, you kind of have to rate this question at like the worst possible, which is the most complex. And it makes me think that like this is at least a maybe a strongly disagree
Okay.
because while it's weird because while I like the game being complex, I acknowledge that I'm much happier having people being able to join in and play the game. So like if the game's too complex, then I just like you can't get certain people you want to play to be able to play, and like community will have issues growing. Um,
Yeah, that's um well that plays in next nicely into the next statement of the rules of 40k are easy to learn. Um that's a
what
strong
rules?
disagree. Okay. Um are the core rules easy to learn? Like uh yeah, like I guess like if it says ballistic skill 3 plus, you have to roll for threes. You know, that part's easy and simple. The part where it's not easy to learn is anytime you try to read a datasheet specific rule that's similar but not quite like another unit's trying to, or
Oh,
the stupid like rules interactions like
uh, this attack is not affected by cover. Versus this attack is your defender doesn't receive the benefit of cover, or this attack if the defender doesn't receive the benefit of cover to their armor saves. And like somehow all these are like different. I forget the exact wording, but like essentially like some minute details change in the wording change whether or not this affects dense or just regular cover or
if there's a section for just free form comments, I'm definitely writing in please bring back universal special rules.
yeah, yeah, that would help.
And then the last statement, I wouldn't want to change anything about the current game.
Strong disagree.
Wrong disagree as well. There's saying that there's nothing to change about the current game implies that the game is perfectly balanced and fun for everybody and there's no room for that's a hard disagree. There's always time to always room for improvement.
That being said, there were times in 8th edition that I probably only would have given disagree or maybe even like in the middle. I remember before Space Marines 2 came out, you could kind of play half the factions well and like as like a pack plus or like pack plus there were no A pluses in there. and even the lower factions were having some high tournament results. And like,
Yeah.
I can't imagine a more ideal state for the game.
All right, so here's another select your top 3 out of the options provided type question. How would you describe the 30k rules? Again, select top 3. Your options are simple, complicated, well written, hard to understand, too many rules, not enough rules, suitable for people starting out, suitable for expert players, suitable for everyone, fun, thematic, intuitive, balanced, and I don't know. I'm inclined to say I don't know.
I'm kind of with you there. Okay, definitely complicated. All the words we've said up until now means wrong complicated.
Anybody who selected well written should have their survey discarded. Or intuitive. Um, this one's difficult. I don't know if because like, is it thematic? I guess the rules that they do try to write thematic rules. And I think if I had to pick top 3, that's probably the ones I would pick because like I wouldn't say they're simple. I wouldn't say they're well written. Hard to understand. Like I can't fully agree on that. Too many rules. Make an argument. Not enough rules. Could also make an argument for that, depending on the codex. Suitable for folks starting out. Suitable for expert players. Yeah. Suitable for everyone. Maybe. So this one's difficult, but I think I would go with complicated, thematic, and I don't know.
I don't know if I agree with the. See, it's funny. After playing Horus Heresy and watching some Horus Heresy battle reports, I mean that has some needlessly complex rules, but you can't say those rules aren't thematic. Just like, oh, the knight dies, and so it has to randomly fall over and explode, and like it doesn't have control. And it's like, yeah, that makes sense, and that's kind of cool. Very thematic, but it's very complicated. So, like, by comparison to that, hmm, I've always had the thought that anytime an army feels like it's living up to its lore, it's broken because everyone's lore is broken. Um, so by that caveat, I almost don't want the game to be thematic at times because, like, some armies thematic, then we have an issue. Weird take, I know.
Yeah, I agree. If you go by the lore, everybody is the best always.
What's funny is I think this is the one time when it's like, I don't know if in the Lord the Speedwa is just supposed to be this unstoppable force. I know it's supposed to be destructive, but like if you focus, you can destroy it. I'm not seeing anyone being able to just like focus it down and destroy it.
Next question. Again, another select your top 3 out of the options. It's the same options as the last question, but this time the question is, what's your experience of making a battle forged army? I wouldn't say that it's hard to understand. I wouldn't say that there's too many, not enough rules. I do think that it's making a battle forged army is fairly straightforward. I think it is suitable for everybody. Aside from that, I can't think of any other options that I would want to from this because I don't know.
I'm gonna be honest. I kind of find putting Battleforge armies together fun. I, okay. I never think, oh, this is a Battleforged army. All my armies are always Battleforged. Making an army is fun for me. Let me tell you, those like bad creations you make when you think about, oh, X plus Y plus Z forms unstoppable Voltron. But reality is like you never actually get X, so you never get Voltron. Those happen in list construction, and those are fun moments. Fun moments. Um, that's about the only one I could select there too.
Yeah. What types of missions do you use in your match play games? GT missions, Eternal War missions, event specific missions, or I've only ever used the GT. Event specific missions. I've ever not.
Would the Crusade mission? What are Crusade mission packs under Eternal War, or are they other? Oh,
I
match played games. Sorry, forgive me. Yeah, just GT mission packs.
If you play match play, what's the typical size of
Yep.
do you usually use detachments from different factions in your armies? This is basically, do you soup?
No.
This edition, it's been like a hard no, because they've given a lot of bonuses to being monofaction. That being said, I have toyed around the idea of bringing a Chaos Soup army. I just haven't really put it in practice.
But
again, that's
here,
really because like the Chaos Marines Codex is still an 8th edition codex, so there's some things that you can exploit and you don't lose from not being monofaction. So,
they use the keyword usually. With that, it's definitely a no. 95+% of my lists are not soup. And that qualifies for usually for me.
yep. Next question. Select top 3 for what is your experience of stratagem? Fun, unfun, too numerous, not enough choice, complicated, simple, thematic, a useful game mechanic. I don't know. Stratagems, I think they are most definitely a useful game mechanic. I think they add a lot of strategic depth to the game in trying to give you resource management instead of just doing like target priority. You gotta it and husband your use of command points. Are they thematic? I think well written ones are.
I agree with that.
Are they fun, unfun, too numerous, not enough choice, complicated? I don't think I can think any of those, to be honest. There's such like a wide breadth of stratagems that
Yeah, you could answer any one of those if you were to point at a particular codex, but generically, I would say no. If you were to just talk about 9th edition, even there, like I look at orcs and it feels like they don't have enough, and I look at space marines and it feels like they have a numerous enough, but not enough choice.
yeah. The thing is, every one of these options is right.
Yep. Just what are you aiming at?
Let's see. How important is fairness when playing the game to you? So you got options from very important to very unimportant. Very unimportant. So I want to know what they mean by fairness here. Is it balance or is it? It's got to be balance, right?
Yeah, very important to me.
Yeah, you got to have a balanced game. Not just like balance among armies, but internal balance in a codex. To play, nobody wants to have an army where there's only like really one viable build. Select your response to the following statements. Strongly agree, strongly disagree. Rules errata updates are good for the game. Strong agree.
Yep.
Updates to points values are good for the game. Also a strong agree. Those updates coming. How often would you like those erratas and updates to balance the game? You got options for weekly, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually, once per faction per edition, never, the rules as published in my codex, or sacrosanct, and I don't know.
Quarterly.
Yeah, I'd be cool with quarterly. Monthly, I think monthly is too rapid a pace for this style of game. We're not playing, like League of Legends here. Whereas like every 6 months, I think is not good enough. And annually, we're already at the annually point, and it's obviously not good enough.
So it's interesting. I think they don't want it to be 6 months, but it feels like every 6 months they have to do a points update of some type. Like, since 8th edition has happened, they've done a points update essentially every 6 months, even if it's been small.
Yeah. Let's see. Is there anything else you would like to tell us about your thoughts on the 40K game? This is an open-ended text box, all caps. Bring back universal special rules, please. Also, scatter dice. No, not scatter dice. Nobody likes scatter dice. But universal special rules, yes, because I'm tired of 90 different fight last abilities having slightly different wording, having to argue about it.
Yeah. um I wish they I don't know. One of my things about the game has always been like price point. I think like price point has always been like a struggle for the game. I like there's without a doubt they can make their models cheaper and still make a huge profit. Um it's also weird because they don't have consistency with it. I would have to think about how to summarize. It wouldn't be great for this show, but
Yeah.
something to the verbiage of like make your pricings more consistent and like make
There's
sure
really no rhyme or reason
make sure
to.
every model has a chance in addition. If you're supporting a model, don't make it unplayable forever.
Also, maybe make them available like suppressors. How many years has it been since suppressors came out, and they still don't have a box?
Um
2 years, right?
yeah, it's kind of clear to me at this point that their model for certain factions or certain units are just they're part of a bigger set. Like supposedly the rockets, oh sorry, copters for orcs are like
Death
going to be
Copters.
box exclusive or Starbucks exclusive.
Let's see. The next question here. This is a weird question. It's just asking what your current living situation is, and it's just like living at home, living alone, living with friends, bringing up kids. Kids moved out. It's a. If you're asking for demographics, just ask how old people are. And then it's asking like income again, demo stuff. Except it's all in British pounds. I have no idea what the exchange rate is. And then asking more, and then the last question is just gender. But yeah, that's the survey. Just watch me fill it out in real time. I just hit submit. Hopefully, GW listens to me and brings back USRs.
Well, they should double count it because that's also my survey for 85% of it.
It's true. Games Workshop, if you're watching, not that twice. Right.
On that note, this is generic for all surveys. Do them. Your voice will not be heard unless you engage here. This is where they are actively looking for your feedback. A random angry email will do less work than a well-written text box, final text box.
Oh, are you saying I shouldn't have just put "bring back USRs" in all caps?
Maybe.
It's a valid point. I mean, like, I could have I could have elaborated on like why USRs would be good for the game, but like I know somebody else already did that, so I just need to say, bring that shit back, and they'll know that there's another person out there who supports that idea.
Well, I could you have phrased it a little bit better? Yes. Was that like screaming that you're all idiots? No. Like, I think that's in the we'll still listen to it, but we might not be showing that to our CEO level.
No, maybe not.
So on a brief side note, I think we're done with the main topic for 40K today.
Yep.
All right. So as you all know, I'm a big fan of a board game called Monster Apocalypse. Monster Apocalypse is the creators are Privateer Press, and they are working on they're working with another company called Mythic Games. They're a company that is known for creating high quality miniature products, and being part of they're like a Kickstarter only company, which is a interesting model. So anyway, Monpok is going through a Kickstarter right now to be turned into a board game, where the price points are like kind of ridiculous. No joke, it's like 1/5 the price of what the models are now. Um,
Oh,
I
so
really
ridiculous
love
in a good way.
yeah. Um, it's like 1/5 the price, and they're also plastic now as opposed to resin. Think about that, Chris. Uh, um, so if you look up Monster Apocalypse board game, you will find a Kickstarter. You'll find a link to the Kickstarter. It currently has 10 days left in it. Um, I would recommend the game. It's a lot of fun. The Kickstarter is a great place is like the best place to get started with the game ever. Um, so yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I've played Monpok. It's a fun game. Support Privateer Press. They're a good company. All right. That's all I got. So, Kevin, anything else you want to touch on?
Don't roll any ones.
Yeah. So, yeah, don't roll any ones. Um, be back next week. Hopefully, will be
Actually,
joining us.
I
Go
actually have
ahead.
something very important to say. Twos are worse than ones because ones are often rerollable. So don't roll any twos. That's my actual strategic advice.
Don't roll any twos.
Unless you're custodes. Then ones are bad again.
Good to know. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this week's show. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, we stream live on Twitch every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/3d6charge. YouTube, where you can catch VODs of our past episodes and painting tutorials. When I make one every 3 months. Sorry. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe, smash like buttons, ring bells, call to action. Thanks for listening.
Thank
Roll
you.
any ones. Bye.
Twos.